This is the Political Forum for Wednesday, October 25th. Today, we welcome the 49th Ward Alderman Joe Moore. Thank you for appearing on Political Forum, Alderman.
Thank you, Carolyn.
I'm Carolyn Day, Ward member here at CAN TV, and you are watching a live interactive program brought to you as a community service by CAN TV. Be sure to tell your friends that they can also watch this show online at cantv.org/hotline. We welcome your questions and comments for Alderman Moore by calling us at 312-738-1060. During the next 25 minutes, we'll try to get as many of your calls in as possible on the air. Alderman Joe Moore can be contacted at 7356 North Greenview Avenue, 773-338-5796, or Ward 49 at cityofchicago.org, www.ward49.com. Well, Alderman Moore, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, sure. Let me first by telling a little bit about the ward I represent. For your viewers who aren't familiar with the 49th Ward, I represent primarily the Rogers Park community, which is located on Chicago's far north side along the lake. The city of Evanston is our northern border. Lake Michigan serves as my eastern border. My ward goes as far south as Devon and as far west as Western. That little, in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, that little part is Western Avenue. But a good chunk of the ward, Ridge Avenue, serves as my western boundary. As you can see, there's a little bit right there. It represents the portion of the West Ridge community that I'm proud to represent. It's one of the most diverse communities in the city of Chicago and indeed the entire nation. We have nearly 50 languages spoken in our local schools. We have people from every walk of life. It's a dynamic, exciting community to represent, and I've been proud to be an alderman in that ward for quite a number of years.
Great. So, Alderman Ward, Chicago's violent crimes are still making headlines locally and nationally. Recently, the 49th Ward had a tragic shooting near Morse Red Line stop during the evening commute time. What do you know? Well,
it was a horrible tragedy. A week ago last Friday, a school teacher, a woman who taught at the Waldorf school that is located in the 49th Ward in Rogers Park, was on her way to dinner with her husband and was caught in some gunfire. Some alleged gang members were shooting at rival gang members, and tragically she was shot and killed. It was shocked the entire community. This is not something that is a regular occurrence in Rogers Park, and it occurred in what really constitutes the downtown area of Rogers Park, Morse and Glenwood, right by the Morse L station. It was toward the end of the evening commute, around 6:30 in the evening, and of course it was, very, 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 very shocking for the community. The police are currently investigating this crime. They were able to identify the intended targets and question them. Unfortunately, the targets are not willing to share much information, but they have been studying surveillance cameras, not only in the immediate area, but in areas far as a mile away, to try to determine if they find any clues that would lead to the apprehension of those who committed this horrible, horrific, dastardly act. And I encourage anyone who is watching this show to contact, if you have any information that might lead to the apprehension of these murderers, please share it with me or call 911 and share it with the police department. Your information, you may not think it's important, but it could lead to some very other important information that could end up with the apprehension of the suspects. Tragically, that same night, in an unrelated incident about a mile away, near Ridge and Tui. A young man, a 15-year-old boy actually, was shot in the back. It has been, we have discovered that the young man was a refugee from another country who just arrived to our country recently. A local street gang was attempting to recruit him. We understand that this is becoming a more common occurrence where street gang members, in an attempt to expand their numbers, have been intimidating recent immigrants, refugees. Just today, Principal Chad Adams, the principal of Sullivan High School, and I hosted a number of community organizations and leaders who have been working with immigrants and refugees, and have asked them to get the word out to their communities about what young people should do to protect themselves from gang intimidation, the need to reach out to an adult if they are being intimidated, to say no to any attempt to intimidate. And so we're working with our refugee and immigrant communities. The young man is currently in the hospital. He's expected to be released, either was released today or is expected to be released tomorrow. And he has been sharing information with the police officers, and police are confident that they'll be able, that this information and other information are gathering could lead to the arrests of the people who've committed this crime. And tragically also, another incident occurred the night before last up on the 1700 block of West Estes. This clearly was a gang-related shooting where an alleged leader of one of the rival street gangs was shot in his car while he was waiting for his girlfriend, and that matter is being investigated as well. All three of these incidents are unrelated, the police tell me, but they all occurred at the same time, and of course is creating quite a bit of concern, understandably, in the community. This is not something that we've experienced a lot, particularly over the last few years. It's been a quiet summer up till the end of August, and it was a quiet year last year. And so I'm working very closely with the police department. I'm in daily contact with the police commander as they are allocating police resources. Spoke with Mayor Emanuel, who has allocated some additional police officers in the community. And finally, and most importantly, we are encouraging the community to get more involved, whether it's working directly with the police and by attending a beat meeting, or working with a number of community organizations that work with young people, including young people who have been trying to break free of the criminal justice system and take a path, a more productive path in life. We're encouraging community members to get more involved, because the safe neighborhoods are the neighborhoods where community members are involved.
Indeed, and we thank you so much for keeping your ward well informed. We do have a caller. Caller, are you there?
Yes, good evening. Alderman Moore, although you had 3 or 4 incidents that happened in your ward the last month or so, you must be doing your job, because you don't have that every day like we have here in Chicago on the north and south. I'm sorry, on the west and south sides of Chicago. There's a bunch of African American and a bunch of Hispanic aldermen that don't give a care, because all they do is kick the can down the road for the last 15 years. Nothing has changed. It's not gotten better. It's only gotten worse. Why can't they be like you and pay attention to your ward, in your ward?
Well, I thank the caller for his kind words about me. I can't speak to my colleagues. My attention is focused on the 49th Ward and doing the best job I possibly can. The last few weeks have been, tremendously challenging for our ward and for the people that work for me in my office as we try to respond to the understandable concerns the community has expressed, concerns for their safety, concerns for the welfare of the victims, concern about making sure that that we have a holistic response. This is not, policing is important, but the solution to our public safety challenges is not simply relying solely on the police. We also have to rely on each other, rely on organizations that have been working with young people to ensure that that they have positive alternatives, positive activities, so they're not getting involved with street gangs, and to help those young people who may be trying to break free of the street gangs and help them become productive members of our community. And it requires a holistic approach, and not one. You can't put all your resources on policing. You can't put all your resources on the community. Youth. You got to do both, and that's what we're trying to do in Rogers Park in the 49th Ward.
And we thank you for your call. We seem to have another caller. Caller, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Yes. Hello. Go ahead.
Wondering, the alderman mentioned, the community getting more involved, and I actually went to the community meeting on the Monday night right after the Friday's shooting, and we briefly heard from a gentleman that has a group of, he calls it positive loitering. I had never heard of that group, and I was just wondering what your opinion was of them.
Well, positive loitering is actually not a very new concept. It was engaged in with great success back in the 1990s in my community when the crime challenges and the violence problems were far, far worse than they are today, as bad as most recent incidents have been. Fortunately, they've been more of an aberration than what was in the 90s, which was more of a daily fact of life. And there are a number of reasons why we made great progress over the last 20 years, and first and foremost was community policing, is community getting involved, working in partnership with the police to address some of our crime and quality of life issues. And one of them was positive loitering, in which, positive loitering is not vigilantism at all, quite the opposite. They are neighbors who get together and either stroll through the neighborhood or just hang out on a particular block where there may have been some problems with gang loitering or drug dealing and things like that. And by simply their positive presence on the street, the community, the neighborhood, reclaims that block or reclaims that corner. Jarvis and Greenview, believe it or not, I don't know how long the callers lived in the neighborhood, but 25 years ago, Jarvis and Greenview was a far different place than it is today. Today, it's a site of coffee houses and an Irish pub and wine store and my ward office. But 20 years ago, it was, one of the hot spots for drug dealing and gang loitering. And how did we turn that around? Simply by neighbors bringing out their lawn chairs and sitting on the corner at night, not confronting the alleged gang members, but simply sitting there quietly, having a barbecue, talking amongst themselves. And what that did is it discouraged the more unsavory activity from taking place. Since then, there's been an organization formed called Rogers Park Positive Loitering, and they pick different hot spots around the neighborhood and do the same sort of thing. A lot of strolling around, walking around, being a positive presence in the community, and it has had a real positive impact.
Great, that sounds great. Thank you for sharing all this wonderful information. We understand that your ward just recently wrapped up its preparatory budgeting election and resulted in 2,200 people voted.
Yes, you're
about?
talking about our participatory budgeting.
Yeah.
It's something that we started 9 years ago here in the 49th Ward. What participatory budgeting is, for those who don't know, is where the residents of a city or a town, or in this case a ward, take a certain amount of a government budget, and they decide on their own how that money is spent through a very democratic process. It started in Porto Alegre, Brazil, about 27 years ago. It was very popular, where they took a quarter of the city budget of Porto Alegre and turned it over to the community to decide how to spend. Community residents came up with project proposals and ideas. They put those ideas on a ballot, and then the entire city came and voted, and the projects with the most votes were implemented by the city government. It had spread throughout Europe and Asia, and thousands of municipalities had been doing it, but it hadn't been done in the United States until back in 2009, when I tried it in the 49th Ward. Each alderman in Chicago gets about $1.3 million to spend at their discretion on capital improvement projects, and I took $1 million of that and turned it over to this process called participatory budgeting. So every year, my residents come together and they come up with project ideas. They vet them, they talk with their neighbors, decide which projects have the most promise. They put them on an election ballot, and then we literally have an election in which every resident of the 49th Ward who's age 16 years of age or older is invited to come and vote for the projects they like. And so we had our election, as you indicated, last Saturday, and we've gotten actually a week, last Saturday, yeah, and we had, time goes by, and we had some great results. The number one vote-getting project was a proposal for replacing some of our worn-out park benches in our parks. We also had the voters also voted to extend the bike path along Pratt Boulevard, so that now there will be soon an uninterrupted bike route from Sheridan Road all the way to Kedzie on Pratt Boulevard, and we closed the gap through this proposal between Clark Street and Ridge, where the bike route was interrupted, and under this proposal we'll connect the area west of Ridge to the area east of Clark, so we'll have one continuous bike route. We had a countdown signal that's going to be put in place at Jarvis and Rogers and Clark Street, which has been a pretty dangerous intersection for pedestrians. So they're going to now have a countdown signal where they can literally see the seconds counting down, so they know how much time they have to cross the street. And then finally, the voters approved a proposal to put new streetlights along Greenview Avenue alongside of Kilmer Elementary School and Sullivan High School. So it's a wonderful project, wonderful process, as you indicated. Over 2,000 people, 2,000 people voted, 2,200, and it was it was great. It's really uplifting for the community. It gets people engaged in the neighborhood and learning more about how budgets work and the tough choices that those of us in public office have to make, and when we have so many worthy project proposals and only limited funds. So it's a great concept and very exciting.
Yeah, thank you. Very innovative. It seems like we have another caller. Caller, are you there?
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
Go ahead, caller.
Hi, Joe. Question for you. I heard you talking about positive loitering and its benefits, but to me, I live about 100 yards from where Cynthia Trevelyan was basically, I don't want to say assassinated, but where she was murdered. And in 20 years that I've been living in Rogers Park in the 49th Ward, I've seen these chronic cycles continually come back, but I don't see anything proactive being done to the offenders. We still have Eric Vaughan 3.5 years later waiting in jail trial with who knows what's going to eventually happen to that. And it seems like we push the problem around from one place to another to another. We push it off of Morris out onto Clark and into the side streets. We push it off of Clark into the side streets onto Toohey. We push it off of Toohey up north towards Jarvis or to the Howard Street. And the problem isn't we're not doing anything to actually remedy the problem, i.e. we have statutes on the books to arrest and prosecute these people, and we're not doing it. Why not?
Well, thank you, Mike, for your question. Mike's been a longtime resident of the ward and a great Cub fan. Well, I share your frustration. One of the challenges we face is something I kind of talked to earlier, is that it's difficult to get, particularly in gang-related crimes. It's very, very challenging and well nigh impossible to get the victims to cooperate with the police. There is, if you will, a code of silence among gang members where they will not rat out even a rival gang member. Cooperating with the police is viewed as sort of a death sentence. Fortunately, not in this community so much, but in a lot of communities throughout the city of Chicago, you also have witnesses who won't cooperate. So that's one of our biggest challenges, and to the extent that when you're able to apprehend somebody and arrest somebody, then unfortunately the wheels of justice grind very slowly. I mean, we still have in custody and awaiting trial a man who was arrested in another tragic incident that happened 3 years ago in the south end of Rogers Park along Devon Avenue, the border between Edgewater and Devon, where a young photographer was waiting at a bus stop, and he was caught in gunfire directed toward another gang member, or a gang member, and he was an innocent bystander who was killed. And that guy, he was arrested thanks to community cooperation. He was identified and arrested, but he's still awaiting trial. And I'm very concerned that that the delays in the justice system are going to only get worse. I was reading today about the proposed budget cuts at the county side and the county level. I know the soda pop tax was quite controversial, and there was a lot of opposition. But the reality is, now that that's been rescinded, county government's going to have to make some very painful cuts. And I know State's Attorney Kim Foxx was bemoaning the fact that she's going to have to cut 10% of her workforce, and the county sheriff is going to have to cut 10 or 15% of his workforce. That's not good for the safety of the public, and I share your concern, Mike. It's with those kind of cuts, it's going to be even harder to bring perpetrators to justice.
Thank you for your call, Mike. You're watching Political Forum, or community service of CAN TV. I'm Carolyn Day, CAN TV board member. This is a live interactive show. You may call 312-738-1060 if you have questions for Alderman Joe Moore. So we're almost about wrap-up time. And
yeah, I think we had another call. We could maybe do a quick call real quick and see if we can do that.
Yeah.
Well, your producers are overruling me.
So
okay.
I want you to share.
Well, I just want to really quick. Whoever's trying to call, if you have a question, please call me at my office. The number is 773-338-5796. I'll put the contact information there, and it's Ward 49 at cityofchicago.org. Boy, we didn't have enough time to talk about everything. A lot of calls.
I know. I just want you to share something
exciting. Verbose Alderman as your guest.
Yes.
But I do encourage everyone to talk to, and maybe we can bring up my website page. Let's see if we can do that real quick. Right there. There we go. That's the homepage of my website. If you go to ward49.com, in the upper left-hand corner, you see there, right under my headshot, there is a place where you can type in your name and your email address, and you can be put on my electronic newsletter, which gives you all the information that we like to share with the community. I try to be very communicative and share information with people, and I encourage those of you, whether you live in my ward or even outside the ward, to sign up for my electronic newsletter by visiting ward49.com. Oh, and that's the new target development that's coming in real soon. The scheduled completion date for that at Sheridan and Devon will be the spring of 2019. And there's a development on Howard Street at Bosworth, a new residential development, 39 units of housing, commercial space, and that's scheduled to go in real soon as well.
So Alderman Moore,
in the fall of 18 or the spring of 2019.
never enough time. Thank
Never
you
enough
so
time.
much for appearing on Political Forum. And thank you, viewers, for calling in with your thoughts tonight. Our telephone technician has been Sylvia. Political Forum is brought to you as a community service by CAN TV. Please join us every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. on CAN TV 21 and cantv.org/hotline. And good night.
Good night.